Okay, so we're live and we are recording. All right, hi everyone. Welcome to our financial aid presentation. We are just going to wait about 2 more minutes to see if more folks show up, and then we will go ahead and get started.
Wow, look at those numbers jump.
All right, for those of you that are tuning in, welcome to our financial aid presentation. We're going to wait just around 2 minutes to get started. Hi, everyone. For those of you just tuning in, welcome to our financial aid presentation. We're just going to wait a few more minutes before we officially get started with our presentation for the evening. Welcome. All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our financial aid presentation. My name is Jessica Yazdani, and I'm the College and Career Coordinator here at Mountain View High School. We also have Leslie Felipe, our college counselor. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us this evening. As a reminder, the English presentation is starting first, and then we will have the Spanish presentation beginning at 7 p.m. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to type your questions in the Q&A box, and we'll address questions toward the last 15 minutes of the presentation. And I'll do my best at responding to some questions throughout Katie's presentation as well. Finally, I'd like to say thank you to our MVLA Foundation. They fund the College and Career Center and the College and Career Center staff members at both Mountain View and Los Altos. So we're very fortunate to have them support all of our college and career related events. And before we get started, I do just want to make a quick note that this presentation is being recorded. So that's just something to be mindful of. We will stop recording once we get to the Q&A session. And without further ado, I'd like to welcome our presenter for the evening, Katie Fitzgerald, Financial Aid Specialist at Mission College.
Hey, everybody. So I see we're already, well on our way with questions regarding financial aid. So yay. But we're going to go ahead and get started. And hopefully my presentation is going to answer a lot of your questions. And as well, Jessica will be able to interrupt me as needed, but we can also, if it's something pressing, but it also will take time at the end. But I think you're going to get a lot of your questions about financial aid answered along the way, because I'm pretty thorough. Although I will tell you, it's also going to be a lot of information. So the fact that they're recording this, and I'll also be providing the slideshow for them, they'll be able to share out with the family. So you'll be able to go back and look at that. This information, because it's really important that you understand what is going on in financial aid. It's as important as selecting a college to attend. So who's paying for it is right up there on the level of most important things. So definitely you'll want to be able to look at this again. So I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. And we're going to put it back to the beginning. So bear with me as I adjust things, because we were playing before we got in here. And then I'm going to do slideshow from beginning, and here we go. All right, fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a wild ride, and it's going to, you know, it's going to take time, but I'm going to go through the slides somewhat quickly. So definitely just keep some questions in the back of your mind, but know that you'll be able to look at this later. Okay, and typically, it did let me arrow down. Yay. Okay, so types of financial aid. Understanding where it's coming from is very important. So we have financial aid coming from the U.S. Department of Education, which is on our federal side. And when you look at the types of programs, this is very broad-based, but anything with the term grant in the title, we love grants because grants are considered gift aid, not intended to be repaid. So grants are like scholarships. They really are geared to help students, typically the undergraduate level. So up until their first bachelor's degree is when most grants are active. And so with the Pell Grant, this $63.45 is per year. So this is our current amount for students attending this academic year in 2021. And it does have a lifetime eligibility up to 6 years full-time equivalent. So if they are going part-time, that's going to stretch that time out, which is awesome because not all students go full-time their entire time that they're in college. So it does give them a little flexibility on that. And again, this is based on a 9-month academic year. So students that have maximum eligibility, that's a nice little chunk of change. And it doesn't mean it's all or nothing. So students that may be part-time now or have a limited eligibility based on other information coming out of the application process, basically they can have even a part of that $63.45. It's not all or nothing. So enrollment and other eligibility criteria can still give them a portion of this grant. Then as we move on to the supplemental grant, this one is really geared for students who initially are Pell Grant eligible, but also show that they have a high additional financial need. And so really we have algorithms that are built to look at this. This is typically students with maximum eligibility, the 0 expected family contribution, and you're going to understand what that means before this is over. And really it's for students that are earliest filers. So first come, first serve, most needy, because it is a limited funded program. Unlike Pell Grant, if you're eligible, you're going to receive the funding. Supplemental grant has limited funding that come to the schools from Department of Education. But it's an awesome program and it's definitely another resource for students. Teach Grant. This one, as much as it sounds like, it is major specific and it is going to be at the university level only. So typically in their junior, senior year when they have determined that they want to become a teacher and are in a program that will lead to that. So, but up to an additional $4,000 per year. So that's great. Junior, senior year, university only. Work study, this is for undergraduates and graduate students. And basically, again, it's up to the school that we get limited funding from Department of Education for this program like the supplemental grant. But based on that funding and meeting, you know, minimum wages, we can provide up to $6,000 or more. It's really up to the school. Right now, Mission College, we're providing up to $6,000 per academic year for our students, and that's basically $3,000 per semester, which is almost about $1,000 a month of earnings that they can have under this program. Student loans, pretty much as it sounds, there's the federal direct student loan program, and this just gives you a quick glance at the amounts that can be borrowed. And I'm gonna go on to show you what the rest of that looks like right after work study. So work study, again, awesome program. Some students may not be as grant eligible as people hoped. Maybe they're able to take on this part-time job, and that will help keep their loan debt down. We do keep it as part-time because we want to make sure their academics come first. But again, it's a great opportunity for them to, maybe that's going to be their first job. They're going to make connections across the campus or wherever that position is located. Most of them are on campus, but there's a few off campus contracts that schools will have. So it's a great opportunity for them to have this convenience as well as a first job opportunity. And then next, as we look at under loans, so again, students are limited on eligibility for grants. Maybe they don't really want to fit the part-time job into their schedule, but they still need the additional funding. Loans are another backup plan. So again, and it's not uncommon that some students may receive different types of loans on their award offer. It could be subsidized, unsubsidized, and plus. And plus is the parent loan for undergraduate students. And while you may be offered loans, you need to keep in mind the big picture. How many years is this student going to be working on their education? Are they going to a bachelor's degree? Are they going to go into a graduate program? We all know that the higher level you go, the more expensive it gets. And, you know, do you need as much in loans for undergraduate years as you do maybe for graduate years? In other words, save some room for that debt. But anyway, and doing it with the direct student loan program under Department of Education really is the best way because they have all kinds of awesome repayment plans and different things like that that are built into it that private loans just don't have. And here's just a quick glance at what current interest rates are. The plus loan, which is where the parent is the borrower, is a little bit different, and parents do have to go through a credit check, but the students for the subsidized and unsubsidized do not. But again, it's just a way to maybe look at, you know, helping out with tuition. If they're going to live on campus, it is a little bit more expensive. So don't be afraid to take out loans, but just remember, if they offer you $15,000 in loans, do you need to accept that whole amount? Maybe not. Maybe you're able to do a lesser amount. So just really only borrow what you need. Okay, so we've kind of glanced at what the federal programs are. Now you're starting to get an idea of what an actual financial aid package could look like. So for students that are going to be applying, typically we're going to look at federal and state programs, and they can get a combination of both. So when we look at our state financial aid programs, of course, our biggest program is Cal Grant, and that is typically, you know, A, B, and C. And there's competitive, which is for those that are continuing typically, and entitlement, which is all graduating high school students and within 1 year of graduation are entitled to be first considered for this funding. Yay, those are your students. A, university only. B, community college and universities. C is more vocational geared, but community colleges as well as the vocational type schools participate. Because yes, community colleges actually have vocational or CTE, career technical programs available that meet the criteria. So when we look at Cal Grant, we're looking at this $12,570. That's typically the amount at a UC. And so below that would be a private school at around $9,000. And then the CSU system, California State University, they are at about $7,000. And it depends on what year, because sometimes they don't give all of it to them the first year. Don't ask me about that. But anyway, you know, community colleges, we get actually quite a bit of funding now. We get that $1,672 Plus, there's all kinds of add-ons based on their enrollment level where they can get an additional up to $4,000 based on if they are attending full-time and what level of full-time, 12 units or 15 units. And we actually now have another add-on for Cal Grant for parenting students. So there's just a lot that they have built into this program because it is our main state program. It does have a pretty hard deadline. So the March 2nd is a pretty hard deadline, especially at universities. Community colleges, we have a little bit more flexibility, but definitely a hard deadline for the universities. And this only has a lifetime eligibility up to 4 years. So if a student decides to go maybe first 2 years at community college and then transfer, should they not use it at a community college? Of course they should. You never want to leave money on the table. If they're going to be eligible, use it for 2 years, transfer, use it for the other 2 years. I mean, that's the whole concept, is they have 4 years to use it. And where Cal Grant looks at income and asset levels, it does have a middle class scholarship for if for some reason they're not Cal Grant eligible based on those income and asset limits, the middle class scholarship comes into play. So it's an either or, either Cal Grant or middle class scholarship. However, this is only going to be at our CSU and UC systems. It does look at ceilings up to $184,000, so that's awesome. But again, it is limited, but it is great because it is really looking at up to 40% of the tuition. And so that's really what a lot of the state programs are built to do, is really help families with the out-of-pocket, upfront costs. So that's what we're really trying to help you with, which is the tuition. And with that, we all the systems have some type of enrollment and or fee waiver. At the community colleges, we call it enrollment fees. We don't call it tuition unless you're out of state. But we also have the EOPS grant, which is a state program. And not only does it give additional financial support, it provides additional academic support. And this is really geared for some of the more underrepresented populations. So maybe first time to college in the family, students with disabilities, veterans, former foster youth, that kind of thing. So we want to make sure that they get the additional funding and academic support in this wraparound program. And CARE, again, is geared for those that may be parenting students. The Child Development Grant, community colleges and universities participate in this program, and that is major specific. And as you can see, California Student Aid Commission is our state agency that oversees our financial aid programs. Okay, and this just gives you a quick glance at what I was talking about for the income and asset ceilings for Cal Grant. But so it's based on the number in the family, but just remember where this falls off, the middle class scholarship will pick up, and it's going to go up to the ceiling of about $184,000. So that's pretty significant. It's just limited with the CSU system and the UC system, so not private, not community college. We do want students to create a Web Grants for Students account, and that's going to help them track their Cal Grant eligibility based on the schools that they're providing into their financial aid application. And that way they can check to see which Cal Grant they became eligible for. I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go on. Okay, and so this is where I didn't go into detail in case you didn't notice. On the fee and tuition waivers, all of the different systems, as I said, have a version. State University grant, the Blue and Gold program with the UC system, and of course, independent colleges, they have all different ways to assist with the, basically the tuition costs, and usually in the form of scholarships for their students. The community colleges, we just recently changed the name of this. Used to be our Board of Governors fee waiver, but now it's the California College Promise Grant fee waiver. And it really it waives the enrollment fees. So if you look at a typical class being $138, it's going to waive those fees. So they do have to apply for financial aid in order to be considered for this, but it's confusing because you're going to find out that California community colleges are making a lot of promises right now. But there is the, I call it CCPG fee waiver. And then on top of that, the community colleges have our promise program. So this is system-wide. So as you see at the bottom, California community colleges, this is where you've heard them say, you know, up to the first 2 years of community college will be free. Yes, we are really striving to make that happen. So yes, they still have to apply through one of the financial aid applications. We really want them to be enrolled full-time because that's the whole motivation of getting them in and out and to transfer, that kind of thing, and getting done in the 4 years, yay. And there are exceptions, of course. There's always exceptions to a lot of things you'll find. And it will vary by college. So if we have a student who was eligible for that CCPG fee waiver, then this could come in the form of a scholarship to help them out with books and supplies. If for some reason students are not eligible for that fee waiver or any other financial aid, this is where that program will also kick in to make sure that they're not paying out of pocket for the community college education. So that's where you hear that they will be attending for free. And so, yay, I mean, one way or the other, their college expenses for their enrollment fees will be covered. Okay, scholarships. Scholarships are one of those areas that are overlooked regularly. I'm just going to tell you where to start looking. What about the high school they're exiting from? The college they're planning to attend? Within that college, are they going into a specialized department? Because if they are in health occupations or engineering or business, oftentimes they have specific scholarships that go to those specific majors. The community colleges, we also have a lot of scholarships. Again, we have a scholarship for just selecting basically our school and your first time to college as a recent high school graduate. The Mission Promise, as you hear, the one that on the previous slide, that is also geared for first-time college students. So, and that's not in the form of a scholarship. We actually have separate scholarships. So that's what's really great about this is start thinking outside the box. What about your employer? You know, you can see all these different ideas of what I've used, and typically whoever's providing the money decides the criteria. So some of our donors can be very specific that they want them in a particular type of program, like our hospitality management, which is our culinary arts program. They want them to be full-time. They could say, we want you in health occupations for our nursing program. We want you to be full-time. So some of them is just, you know, hey, here's from our foundation that says, hey, if you're enrolled at least half-time, we're going to give you $1,000. So it can be very specific or very basic. It can be based on very generalized things. It's not always about the straight A student. It's not always about the student with the most need, but oftentimes you will have to provide a personal statement. So this is what we would consider like an master essay or a profile, and it's reusable, and talk about the whole K through 12 experience, you know, what was the good things? What was your community service? Did you play an instrument, or are you an athlete? Are you a student with a disability? Whatever it is, this is where you get to share everything that makes you you, and not all of it was necessarily an easy road. So if there were just even the littlest of struggles, sometimes talking about it, again, is going to what makes you seem unique, and people will want to help. So you have to talk about why this is going to be important to you to get a higher education, and how you plan to give back to the community when you do. So those are all little pieces that you want to make sure you include. Okay, general eligibility, yay. So for the most part, students need to be living in this country for what we would say permanent reasons. On the flip side, typically international students that are here just for their education and they go back to their country are not usually eligible for our federal and state financial aid programs. So for the federal application, we want them to have a permanent Social Security number, regardless if their parents do or do not. But for students who do not have a permanent Social Security number, they would be able to complete the California DREAM Act. We also call it CADA. And they do not need a Social Security number, or if they have one that was issued through DACA, which is the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, that could be the situation, but neither student nor parent need a Social Security number to complete that. So really, for the federal application, which we'll consider them for state aid as well, they would have a permanent Social Security number because they are typically a US citizen or permanent resident or meet some other specialized entry. Males between 18 to 25, regardless which application they're going to complete, need to register for selective service. This by any means does not mean they are going to have to serve in the military. It is just a referral or a reference point for should we ever have an urgent state of the union. It's a starting point for them to, again, determine how many we have in this age group and then go from there. So it does not mean that they will have to serve in the military. It is merely a starting point. Students need to have a high school completion status in order to receive financial aid, but that is not going to be an issue because I know all your students are so close to finishing that they're going to get their high school diploma and be eligible, no problem. So enrollment, most people think that you have to be full-time to get financial aid. Well, now I'm here to tell you that is not the case. The majority of the programs will actually kick in at about a half-time status, which can be just a couple of classes. So some will pay the same amount, some may not, some may pay a little less, but the idea that when a student, maybe needs to up some work hours, for an outside job to pay the next term's tuition or anything along those lines, whatever reason they may have to take fewer units, they're still going to get covered by a lot of their financial aid. So that is always good to know. Some specialized programs like EOP, EOPS want full-time attendance, but they also have exceptions to that. Students, in order to keep the money rolling in, need to make satisfactory academic progress. So again, not that difficult, carrying a C average, and then also completing at least 2/3 or 66.7% of what they attempt each term and overall. So again, did I say they had to complete everything at full time? No, I did not. So, because again, sometimes, for whatever reason, a student may need to drop a class. And that's okay, as long as they're meeting that 2/3 completion requirement with the balance of the classes they're still in. So life happens, we understand that. They do need to be enrolled in an eligible program of study, and I say this really more on the community college side, because as they come in undeclared, they will not be eligible. So we just encourage them to select something with us. It's a lot easier to change your major. But even university, you go in maybe undeclared for one term and you're going to have to declare a major. So for me, I just say declare a major as early on as you can, and especially on the community college side, pick something, change it later. All right, now we're getting into the application cycle. So, in the day of technology, as we all are in, even the Department of Education has gone mobile. So students will be able to complete their financial aid application, as well as completing the FSA ID, which is the electronic signature. They'll be able to follow up to check out their student loan activity, all different kinds of things. So with that, even the parents now can actually go in as a parent and on their mobile phone and also complete their portion of the financial aid application for their students. So both student and parent can be on their cell phones at the same time completing this application for the student. It's pretty good. That's a new feature this year. But anyway, let's look at what the regular application looks like. So this is where majority of students will likely go, those that have the permanent Social Security number. It does translate into Spanish should you want to have that selection. But FAFSA, free application for federal student aid, emphasis on free application. Students will be able to apply for both federal and state aid here because you indicate I live in California, and so they'll send it on to our California Student Aid Commission. They do have FAFSA announcements, which a lot of times is good to just kind of check, because if they're going to shut it down for maintenance, it's going to be noted there. If there's anything down with the IRS data retrieval tool, which is the link between the two applications, that would also be noted. There's also different links in here that you can go to student aid for more information about how financial aid works, about loan repayments, and all kinds of things. So very handy webpage to start off with. Okay. Logging in. So really the student is the one that should be driving the application process. It is their application, not the parents, but parents, you can be helpful, and you will have a little bit of information coming in here as well. But the students need to create the FSA ID, which is the electronic signature, which is basically just for them and the parent to certify that, yes, everything on here is true to the best of my knowledge, and I won't abuse financial aid funding by buying a new car instead of using it on my education. But that does include you to spend it on anything tied to your cost of attendance, and you're going to see what that looks like for those categories. But yeah, it's, you know, pretty straightforward. And so the students will create this, and then throughout the application, parents will also have an opportunity to create it, which typically first option is going to be if they want to use the IRS link, which, trust me, saves a lot of you know, confusion as to where am I supposed to find the information for the FAFSA on my income. What line do they want me to look on the 1040? So this really linking to the IRS is a great opportunity. Only one parent needs to have an FSA ID, and this is the first opportunity to do that. Again, linking, everything needs to match with the current status of the parents. So if things have changed from when they last filed the 2019 income tax, then it may not be usable. So again, maybe parents were married and now they may be separated, which you don't have to be divorced to meet that criteria, but we would only want to include one parent's income information, so not using the link would be best. Sometimes parents file separately, so again, that's not going to work with the link. Parents who do not have a permanent Social Security number but either have an ITIN or they don't have any Social Security number at all, we're going to be putting zeros in for their Social Security number. So again, the link is not going to work for them either. And we'll talk about how they're going to do the signature in just a moment. Talking about assets, we really want to make sure that you don't report assets. So be very clear. This is really tied to one of the features that you can open up during the application. If you always want additional information about what the question is, you can click on the little blue button with the question mark. And this is really what that is going to open up and tell you about your assets. So it really is talking about, yeah, if you have an educational savings account, for the student, it needs to get included. But you are not expected to report, you know, your retirement benefits. So there's things you do need to include and things you do not need to include, making sure you understand the difference of both. Sometimes it could be to additional real estate that you might have in addition to the home you live in. So again, you're talking current market value minus any debt would be the value of the asset. And this could also be including stocks, bonds, other investments like that. Okay, so California Dream Act. So with the FAFSA and California Dream Act, again, for parents that don't have a social security number, they're able to put in zeros for their social security number. With the FAFSA, at the very end of the application, instead of creating an FSA ID, they would be able to print out a signature page, sign it, and mail it into the FAFSA processing center. Similar to that, the California Dream Act, again, is for students that also do not have a permanent social security number, but may have a social security number issued through DACA, and their parent may have an ITIN, which they're also able to use on this should they choose to, or they can use the zeros. But again, we want to make sure that students are going to complete one or the other application, because this, for students that are able to complete the DREAM Act, they're going to be able to be considered for all of that California-based aid. And did I mention California-based aid has to be used in California, okay? So you can't get Cal Grant and then go use it at, you know, another school out of state. So it does, it is intended to be used here, unfortunately, which is also fortunately for all the schools you have to choose from here. But anyway, so the California DREAM Act follows the streamline of questions as they are presented on the FAFSA. So they are very similar, just a few different things as far as doing the parent signature at the end, but that actually for them is going to be done electronically through this process. So anyway, it's pretty straightforward as well. And then for those that may be looking at a private college, this may come up, CSS profile. And really the best way to know if your private school is going to require it is by going to their financial aid webpage, or you can go here to the College Board and look that up. But I would always say check with the school, because that would be the most recent. Hopefully they're more updated even than the College Board's website, just to make sure. So the public schools in California do not require it, and not all private schools do either. It is a fee-based application, so make sure if it's required or not, and what the deadline is. Because again, since it's a different application, it doesn't necessarily go by our March 2nd California deadline. Okay, dependency status. This is determining whose information is going to go on the FAFSA or the DREAM Act, and approximately how long that's going to be, which for most, it's going to be a while. So for the parents, that is. So students, of course, filing the application until they can really answer one of these, yes, parent information will be required. So for most students, that's going to be an age out time frame of about age 23 or 24, okay? Unless they're under that age, but starting to work on a graduate program. So this tells you, this is the government saying, hey, family first, your responsibility first to see what resources you have to pay for your child's education, and what you may not be able to provide, we will try to help. So that's really where they're being pretty strong about that. But there's different nuances. So sometimes it could be that a student has been in foster care, a student has been awarded the dependency court, a student may be living in a legal guardianship, which is with parents, with people other than their biological parents. So there are different nuances around this, but for the most common scenario is students and their parents will be providing information on this application. And I've also given you a little list of who parent includes, because oftentimes we have two parents living together that never got married, but both of their information will be required. And for those that may be separated or divorced, whoever that custodial parent is, and if they have remarried, it will be inclusive of that step parent. Okay, here's a little bit of where we get into the rocket science of financial aid. The application's trying to determine the financial strength of the family, and what is the expectation from you, and what is going to be the expectation of the government trying to assist. So we have a simple equation, cost of attendance, which you'll see what determines that, but it is coming with the guidance from Department of Education, minus expected family contribution, which is what the application is trying to determine, equals how much financial aid we can give you. So let's take a look at what cost of attendance really is. This is also known as the student budget. Based on how they answer questions, when they are listing initially up to 10 schools in the, on the applications, they could say, well, for some of them, I may be planning to live on campus. Some of them, I may stay local and live with a parent or relative. Some, I may be actually living on my own with some roommates. So it depends. But this is what's driving these different budgets that are the cost of attendance. So the varying one, on campus, off campus, with parent or relative. And this that we're glancing at is really our Mission College one. So yay, nice and low on the tuition and fees, right? But no, really. What we're looking at is the standard allowance is $16,000. The driving factors that make it different in these different areas is going to be tuition and fees and room and board. The rest of them are going to be pretty stationary for all the different college systems, but those two categories are what will vary. And the good news is the higher cost of attendance goes, obviously the more wiggle room you know, that there can be eligibility for financial aid. So even with a student at Mission College who's living with a parent, that's what this is, not paying rent, they're still given an almost $9,000 allowance for room and board, anticipating maybe they do have to help contribute. So that's the good thing. And personal miscellaneous, almost $4,000 for that. So again, the fact that the government builds these in there is good. Higher is better to establish the level of need. And you'll see how that looks right about now. So looking at different types of systems, we have a community college, the CSU, and a private school. The expected family contribution that was determined by the application is the same, because that's what it determined, so $4,000. But the cost of attendance based on, you know, and these are all based on a student living with a parent. So these are the variables of having that room and board allowance built in. But the biggest driving factor that's going to make a difference is that tuition because of the different systems. But it also shows you, even with a very inexpensive college system like a community college, there's still financial need there. That still means I'm able to get Pell Grant, Cal Grant, a work study job, a student loan if I need one, scholarships, the fee waivers, all of that is still on the table. Okay, special circumstances, because while they're looking at income and assets, basically they're looking at 2019 income and current assets. Things change, especially when you're applying for, you know, fall of 2021. So there are allowances. You still have to file the application as it's requesting the information, but you can work with the schools probably as early as just after the beginning of the next year. So January, February, check with the school, because if any of these have changed your financial stability of the household that's determining the student's eligibility for what types of programs, grants versus loans, this is where we can try to update that information. We can do it either based on the calendar year of 2021, or we can base it on July 1, 2021 to June 30th, 2022, which actually is even more favorable. But keep this in mind. This is in your back pocket, that what was then, based on what we reported as our financial stability, is no longer the case. And that's obviously happening a lot for families with this COVID pandemic and losing businesses, losing jobs, that kind of thing, sometimes losing household. So anyway, just keep this in the back of the mind. And this is valid to do up through the academic year while the student is attending. Okay, we are in the timeline as of, there's Thursday. So it's here. Anyway, and then California's priority deadline is March 2nd. So for that Cal grant, we definitely want the students to meet that deadline. And I would say if you can, have everything done before the end of this year, before December. So because again, with those programs that have limited funding, we want to make sure those students are in that first come, first served. So CSS profile, again, deadline set by the school. So make sure you know what that is, because you don't want to miss that deadline, because a lot of that is their institutional aid consideration. And when they're more expensive, you want that institutional aid. So again, updating the information for web grants for students. If they change their mind later to say, oh, I was going to go to UC, but now I'm going to go to a CSU, that's where they would be able to update that information to make sure that the Cal grant is going to the correct school. Okay, be the squeaky wheel, student, not the parent. So yes, know what you're supposed to be doing. What am I needing to turn in? When do I need to do it? Will there be additional documentation? Most likely. And when is that due? Don't miss deadlines. Sometimes you miss a deadline and it is a hard deadline and you will just not be considered for financial aid. Universities are very, very strong in that sense. So make sure you meet deadlines and you already have done your research to know what they are. Okay, and just for students that actually maybe do a disbursement, so a student loan or anything like that, that's going to actually end up in their hands and not be paying tuition, it will come through. Most of us partner with Bank Mobile, which I believe is nationwide, but again, they can have it transfer into their own personal bank account, and that's how we disperse. All right, we do have a Cash for College event. So if you need some extra guidance on taking care of the application process, I think a lot of you are going to be able to walk away and be able to do this on your own. But should you have any special circumstances you wanted to ask about or anything along those lines, or you get stuck between now and the 7th, you'll be able to ask questions. And I'm going to let Jessica talk about this for just a moment.
Yeah, so we will be hosting this on October 7th. I'll be sending out a Google form, just asking families some questions about the application. We're really hoping, due to this having to be a virtual event this year, that you stop by if you have more of a complicated or unique financial background that you really could use the expert advice on. If you have general application questions, or if your student just needs someone to help guide them through the application, they just kind of want someone there to look over their answers, then they can definitely reach out to myself or Leslie Felipe, our college counselor at Mountain View High School, and we can schedule an appointment with them to do that. And then Laura Duran is the college and career coordinator at Los Altos, and Angela Price is the college counselor at Los Altos. So you can reach out to either the coordinator or the college counselor if you have general questions or you just want someone to look over the application for you.
Yeah, and right. And trust me, what they don't know, they will reach out to us and ask us. They know all the financial aid people at all the different local colleges, and we're always there to help them too. So, and we will be available during this time frame on October 7th. So we'll see how many sign up. We might get some from Foothill, De Anza, all of the local colleges. And we're almost done. So what to take away? A lot of information. But the bottom line is, if you don't apply, we can't help you, okay? So no magic potion, but amazingly enough, there is a type of financial aid for every student. Probably close to 85% of students, either at a community college or a CSU, are receiving some type of financial aid. And probably between 70 to 80% at a UC are also receiving some type of financial aid, which tells you more are than aren't. But if you don't apply, we can't help you, not even for the College Promise programs. So you definitely want to make sure you apply. Don't think that, oh, well, they're just going to go to community college first, we don't need to. Definitely. I mean, if they can get any eligibility and save that money towards their university, college career, then that's fine. So definitely Apply, apply, apply. I can't emphasize that enough. Okay, great resources for you, both federal and state. The California Student Aid Commission has a lot of publications that can also provide additional information about both federal and state programs. Even the student aid one has a lot about federal financial aid. They just don't have our state financial aid. Our state financial aid at the Student Aid Commission has both federal and state information, but both of them great resources, phone numbers for when you get stuck, need to reset an ID or anything along those lines, which does happen, trust me. And you will use those IDs year after year, by the way, and you will be reapplying year after year, in case I didn't make that clear. And chances are, parents, you're going to be also providing your information for at least the next few years on the application. So anyway, we can open it up for questions now. Are you guys like totally like, phew? It's a lot of information.
We had some questions I was able to answer, Katie, but there were two that I was hoping you could answer. So the first one I think we might need more clarification on. It says, is a single parent given more financial aid even though they aren't low income?
So it's not that you're going to get more financial aid because you're a single parent. Being a single parent, it's still going to be based on your income. And if you're the single parent, that is the custodial parent. Because when you think about, well, I'm the custodial parent, but you know, my ex-spouse also provides child support. Well, which one weighs more? Well, what if it's 50-50 on the custodial part? You know, so there's a lot of nuances. So it just because you're a single parent does not necessarily gain you anything. It's still, you could be this custodial parent that actually makes more income than the other parent. So it doesn't necessarily buy you anything. It's still going to be based on your income and assets as you would have. I hope that answered it okay.
And then, thank you. And then the next question is, if I already did FAFSA for my older child 5 years ago, would I use the same account to apply for my other child?
Yes. So depending on, like you said, I think it was a number of years. You know, it may have been the old PIN, personal identification number. Oh my gosh, that's aging me too. But either way, your information might still be in the system. And if your older child actually created an FSA ID for you, then either way, you're in the system, and you would want to make sure that somehow you know what that is. But as you go to attempt the FSA ID, it'll know if your information's already kind of in there based on your social security number. And if it was an old under the PIN system, it should let you go through the FSA ID process. If it was an FSA ID already established by another child and you don't remember what it is, you know, by you or the child, the older one, you'll be able to go in and kind of reset it, because it'll tell you that, hey, we have information and you can't set up a new one. You need to find the information on the old one, but you can actually reset your username and password and all that kind of stuff. But it is all tied to the social security number.
And then does the application require the student to provide a list of colleges that he/she is applying to?
Ideally, yes. Good question, because to me, I know it's oftentimes early on and they're looking at applying for admission. They haven't made all decisions. I would say, you know, nothing should be off the table as far as choosing schools. But they definitely want to have, you know, consider the order. So if a UC is going to be one of them, that should be first, because that's your highest Cal grant right there in the #1 position. And schools cannot see who is where anymore. So, you know, consider UC, private, CSU, and community colleges. You can always update the information. You can take us off, you can add new ones on. And if you have more than 10, because again, with the CSUs and UCs, you have to list them individually, not like a common application. So if you need to remove some, you need to wait a couple of days for the initial application to get processed, and then you can go in and delete schools to create room. But once you're starting to make decisions, notify the schools, take them off the application, and just at least let them know I'm no longer, interested in your school. So we stop bugging you to follow up on turning in documents. But yeah, so you definitely are going to, list multiple schools, and nothing should be off the table as far as consideration. And again, dream schools and everybody else too.
And if a student is going to a state university, do we need to fill out our 529 plan for FAFSA?
So it doesn't matter what kind of school you're going to. If the FAFSA is asking for a 529, yes, it's considered a resource. If it's in, if it's either, if the parent is the holder, it's going to go under the parent asset. So yeah, it is considered an asset. The only time it wouldn't initially get reported is maybe the grandparents took it out, and then it'll be considered untaxed income the following year when the student goes to reapply for financial aid. I know, don't make me go into all this extra detail, it just complicates it. But yes, 529s are an asset. Typically, if the parent's holding it, it's under parent assets.
What if you have two kids going to college at the same time, two seniors?
So good news is usually the FAFSA, when you submit the first one, it'll ask parent, do you have another student that you would like to provide your information for? And if you say yes, it'll open up a new application and let your student start filling that out. And then it's eventually going to bring your information over to it. So when it gets to the parent information. So yes, it's awesome. And as far as 529 accounts, if you have, really just kind of think about what you might use each year for each student. So if you have 40,000 for one student, you might want to just report 10,000 because that's what you're thinking of using for that first year. These are self-certifying applications. You're completing them to the best of your ability. So, really it's how you want to report that information. We don't always ask for the documentation.
How is home equity considered in calculation of eligibility or expected family contribution?
So not the home you live in, only any additional real estate property. So again, it would be the value minus any debt against it, so mortgage, equals the amount of the asset, but not the home you live in, only any additional real estate.
For a student to apply for a loan, whether subsidized or unsubsidized, is FAFSA application for that too?
So the FAFSA is just the initial point. Don't forget, the application is merely the tool because the schools are determining the eligibility. And most schools, if they realize the student needs loans to meet the tuition requirements, they're going to offer them. That's part of the financial aid package. They will auto package student loans for the student. Just remember that you don't always have to accept them, or you can reduce the amount offered. But that's just the start of it. Students will likely, through the school's process, go in and do additional, like the promissory note and things like that.
Okay, where is the best place to look for scholarships? So for Mountain View, and I'll put in a plug for that. For Mountain View and Los Altos, we post our scholarship opportunities on our websites. So we both have Google sites, and Mountain View's is www.mvhsccc.net. So anytime I hear about scholarships, I'll be posting them on our website, especially local scholarships. I'll be sending out families emails about those as well. And then Los Altos has a similar Google site. So you can find theirs on their Los Altos High School homepage. And then in addition, some colleges also have additional scholarships that may require a separate application. So you might want to check your college's website too for any additional types of applications that they have.
Right. And then some of the other more common ones, of course, there's like FastWeb. There's Zinch.com. There's MyScholarly.com. So there's a few of them that you can look at that really allow you to establish a little profile, and then they kind of do the work for you. It's like a search engine. But yeah, there's a few, but your high school resources are your best ones because they're the ones that are on top of all this information.
And then the last question that we'll take, we do have to get started with the Spanish presentation soon. This is the last question. Since the student is the one who applies for financial aid, even though the parents help with filling out the financial information, can students have access to all the parents' financial information listed on the application form?
It's up to the parents. I mean, you know, we're going to provide worksheets that are going to help you kind of get started in the process. Just like when we will provide the slides of this presentation. So yeah, it's up to the parents. So that's where we can say you sit side by side and provide the information for them. Otherwise, you can just say, hey, you know, they're going to need your FSA ID to do the IRS transfer anyway. So, or you can hand them your 1040, whatever you're comfortable with. But this is kind of like letting your student also know, reality check, this is adulthood, and they are going to be an adult. And, you know, it's one of their probably first life lessons as to what to expect from adults. But if you really don't want them to see it, you can load it and do the IRS transfer tool. The transfer tool does not show dollar amounts. It will show transferred from the IRS, and that's it. But you do have to break down if there is a two-parent income, parent number one, parent number two, which comes off your W-2s. So there is a way that parents don't have to share that information directly with their student. Or they can give it to the student to fill out themselves.
All right, so thank you so much, Katie. We really appreciate you being here with us this evening. If you have additional questions or if we weren't able to get to your questions, feel free to email me. Again, my name is Jessica Yazdani, and I can help you out, or if I need to, I can definitely reach out to Katie as well to answer any questions that you all have. So thank you so much again, and we hopefully will see you soon. Katie,
Yeah.
did you have anything?
I just wanted to add, yes, we are going to provide the recording of this, the slides to this, some worksheets to help you get started on the application process to gather the information in advance. So we're not going to just leave you hanging right after this. There will be additional communication from Ms. Yazdani. So, you know, just be prepared that, you know, you can always ask questions. You can come to the Cash for College event and ask more questions there. Whatever it takes, we will get through this together. Yeah, you're muted.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good evening.
All right, thank you. I'm going to stop sharing and then I can kind of